Welcome, Fiona, to Body United interview number 2.
Awesome. Thanks, Justin.
Hey guys, this is Fiona Martin. She is a business owner, triathlete, and a proud vegan and animal lover. And I'm going to let her tell you a little bit about her story and where she's at in the world today and how she's kicking some butt out there.
Thanks. Yeah, I won't take hours to explain this story. I'll just keep it as brief as I can. Well, first of all, I went vegan about 2.5 years ago. And what prompted me to do that was a variety of reasons. One of them was just for general health. I felt like I ate quite well before, but I think like all of us, we probably ate a little bit too much processed food. And as I was developing as a triathlete in 2017, I'd been competing for about 5 years at that point. So I knew that good fueling was going to equal better performance out. So I started cleaning up my diet that way. And I started with a book called Racing Weight. And I can't remember who wrote that book, but the basic premise of that book is basically get rid of the processed foods, no fast foods. And it was, a cookbook for me as well to kind of up my cooking game. I didn't have a fantastic cook as a parent. So we ate a lot of like Kraft mac and cheese and Hamburger Helper and that sort of stuff. So, my cooking skills were cook some meat, heat up some frozen veg, and maybe cook some potatoes. So that was the first part. I started cleaning up my diet then and started seeing results, started feeling better, started losing weight. And weight loss was never a goal of mine. It's always been like a happy side effect of improving my diet. So I was doing well with that. And then I watched a documentary called Cowspiracy, which is talking about the environmental impact of the farming, the industrial farm industry and the dairy industry. And that really struck a chord with me. My husband and his brother are very aware of the environmental crisis that we're in, the climate crisis, which especially right now with Greta Thunberg is very much in the public eye. But 4 or 5 years ago, it's still kind of, people didn't really think about it so much. But,
Sure.
I've been listening to my husband and everything that's going on. And, we think about carbon footprint and our driving cars as being a driver of climate change. But Cowspiracy also puts a big factor of factory farming. And I can't stop driving my car. Living in South Carolina, we just don't have public transportation. I have to drive my car.
Sure.
But when they said, hey, stop eating meat and stop eating dairy, I thought, you know what, I could actually do that. Like, I can control what I eat. My initial concerns were certainly being a competitive triathlete. Like, how can I do the energy, like expend the energy that I use every single day and every single week and not eat meat and dairy? And so I started researching it and found people like Rich Roll, who's a competitive triathlete and an ultra endurance athlete, and he's completely plant-based, and they had great resources there. And as I got into this, I thought, if this is going to be something I'm going to do, I want to do it right. And I want to do it right in the sense of setting up good habits. So I watched that documentary around Christmas time, and I was getting married in April. And I knew that I couldn't plan a vegan wedding. I thought that would be a little bit difficult to do.
A little hard on the guests, huh?
Hard on the guests and really hard on me as someone who didn't know how to go about doing that. So that gave me 4 months to kind of transition with that eye on, after we get married, I want to be able to be almost 100% plant-based. And so we started out with doing like one meat-free meal a week. One meat-free meal a week. And me and my husband, the next day after our meat-free meal, I think I did spiced lentils and kale, we're like, you know what? I feel really good. Like, it was actually pretty quick. Our digestion felt better, just felt energized. We were worried about that not being full feeling. And it turns out that didn't really happen. We felt really great and energized. So one night turned into 2 nights, turned into 3. It really quickly went. Then I had to like up my cooking skills because I had to figure out like 4 meals a week to try and make this way.
Yeah.
And
So that was one of the biggest problems that I found on it is the staying full. I was just always in the kitchen, and so I was interested to see, like, glad to see that you had that initial hard time with it too. And I'm just interested to see like what kind of struggles you had with in the beginning and how you overcame those. And you've
Hmm.
kind of touched on those a little bit, but
Yeah, so that full feeling I found for myself and for my husband, and I can only speak for us in this matter, is that sort of heavy feeling we had on our stomach after like a big meal with a lot of meat. And I'll say going plant-based, we didn't have that heavy feeling, but we didn't wake up at night hungry, and we weren't starving the next day. So in my mind, what I perceive is happening with that heavy full feeling that we have after eating meat is that our digestive tract is just working super hard to try and break down the food and absorb the nutrients, at least for myself. My husband and I, the last time we both had red meat was actually, it was for me our wedding night, and then he had like bison the next night, very lean, pasture raised, high quality beef. And he was up all night with the night sweats. And he was like,
mm,
I can't eat red meat again. And I've certainly heard from other people that have the same reaction to red meat. As not everyone has that, but I've heard many people who aren't even plant-based, just like, no, I can't eat red meat. It really affects me badly. So in terms of feeling full, I mean, I graze. Like I eat,
little
eat a big
snack throughout the
breakfast.
day.
Of course, I always have
Yeah.
fruit on me. I always bring food with me. So, big breakfast, I usually eat oatmeal. That's really satisfying. Makes you feel, I mean, you are full after that. Fruit after that, probably about 10:30. Lunch is usually leftovers from the night before. And I will say like plant-based leftovers are way nicer for me than like meat leftovers. Like I used to hate heating up like meat, and a lot of times you just didn't eat it. But like
Yeah. As much
reheating reheating lentils is delicious. So
Hey, as much as I love a good steak, a microwave steak is one of the worst things you can try to eat.
yeah, you got to eat that meat when it's ready, and it's not always good heated up. But like vegetable leftovers are fantastic, especially because I really like curry. So a lot of the stuff I make is like spicy, and it's even better the next day.
Better, yeah. I was gonna say, like chili.
Hmm.
Chili's always better the next day.
Yeah, exactly. And then usually eat something in the afternoon, nuts, breads. I mean, when I say bread, I mean toast. I don't just eat a piece of bread. Um, and then like another big dinner, and we eat a lot of pasta, lentils, farro. We kind of spread our grains out: potatoes, farro, quinoa, pasta, lentils, like I said, beans, rice. Those are kind of our staples, and we can cycle through a whole lot of those. And like I said, especially for me and my husband, a big thing for us is we cook probably enough for 4 people, and then we have meals, easy meals, grab and go. It's for lunch the next day, so it makes it work for us.
So, do you supplement with anything at all, like any B12, or do you get your DHAs and all that?
So yeah, a lot of my research in that sort of transition period was trying to figure out, I mean, oh, I heard about protein. How am I going to get my protein? So, I read all that stuff, and you guys can do your own research around protein and where we get it from. But consistently for moving to vegan and even vegetarianism was to get that B12 supplement. So I knew right away that I would have to take that, and I've taken that ever since I went vegan vegetarian. I watched that the Game Changers movie that's on Netflix, and they actually talk about B12, and they said that the origin of that is actually from like dirt, and we don't eat enough dirt because we have very clean vegetables, right? We
Yeah,
get our stuff from the store, and we just don't eat dirt. And also, even if you bought your stuff dirty from the store, our soil has very few nutrients in it now because of factory farming and pesticides. So
monocropping and all that. Yeah,
yeah,
I think that's
so
one
that,
thing you and I definitely have. Throughout this, whether it's vegan or carnivore or wherever you're at in the middle, it's one thing you and I both share is that just the way that we're farming now is just destroying our health. Just
mhm,
we're supposed to have all these microbes and all this stuff in the soil, and it's just gone because like you said, all the pesticides and everything. And
yeah.
I posted the other day in the group about boron, and boron is a really essential trace element, and it's just not in our soils anymore.
Right. It's not in our
Big
soils. We
deal.
don't bathe in like streams, and we don't drink from streams, so we don't get it from there either. So the Game Changers documentary was interesting. They said that if you're eating meat, that you get the B12 because the animals are eating dirt. So that was the first I'd heard of that. But they even said that even people who do eat meat can still be deficient in B12. So I think it's beneficial for anyone to take a B12 supplement. Besides that, I started with my triathlon coach, Marnie, coaching and nutrition about 6 months after I went vegan. And one of the reasons I chose her was because first, she's a registered sports dietitian. So I could trust her and tap into her in case I was doing something wrong with my diet, if I was being deficient in any way. And she's a 25-year vegetarian. So I knew I wasn't going to have a triathlon coach who would maybe have an automatic resistance to someone doing endurance sports without meat in their diet.
Good, good.
And she was fine. I did like a food diary for her, and she said, you know, my diet is very varied, and it's much more varied now that it's plant-based than previously, because I learned how to make all these cool things and smoothies and greens and all this sort of stuff that before I just didn't do. But she did recommend that I go get a blood test. So in my blood test, I was low in iron. And so I do take an iron supplement, and
And
it's,
this was after how long of being
well,
vegetarian or vegan?
this was probably a little bit less than a year after being vegan, but keep in mind, I'd never been tested for iron before. And just from a gut feeling, the reason we did this test is because I was having very high relative perceived effort on my runs. My runs were just extremely difficult for me. And within a week of taking the iron supplement, my run turned around completely. So I feel like I may have always been low on iron. It's very common for women to have a low iron, and I wasn't anemic, I wasn't deficient, I was just low.
Mm-hmm.
And especially women who do endurance sports, because we're just beating up ourselves a little bit. So I can't say whether that was a direct correlation to going plant-based or whether it was something I always had. My gut, honestly, is that I may have always struggled with that.
That's not the
Otherwise,
first I've heard of that too. I have heard that women in general just can't have trouble with that. I know my mother, for instance, she's had trouble with it, and she's always eaten meat. So
yeah. So yeah, I take the iron, and then otherwise on the blood test, very typical for, I think, most Americans, a little bit low on magnesium and a little bit low on D3. So I take magnesium orally, and I also use topical magnesium supplementation, which is actually a better way to absorb your magnesium. I take D3, B12, and then I take iron at night. So
how much of the D3 do you take?
oh, we started out high, like, because my D3 was low, and I did this all under the care of a nurse practitioner as well. I got other professional opinion on it, who has a background in endurance sports, and she says it's very hard to get your D levels up. So I think we started at like 5,000 a day, which is very high. And then I have a blood test roughly every 6 months. And so it took 6 to 8 months for that level to get up. And now I'm on a maintenance of, I think, 1,000 a day, but I'd have to get the
Okay.
bottle.
I mean, I've heard of way higher than that. I've heard as much as like 50,000 for people who are super, which seems like, whoa, 50,000.
Yeah, no. And
It's like,
again,
that's
it
like
was,
a week at the beach, right? 50,000.
yeah. And it's interesting because I was so concerned with how much time I spend outdoors, because I'm training, I mean, anywhere from like 10 to 20 hours a week. And a lot of that is on the bike and running, which is going to be outdoors in South Carolina. So I was very judicious with my sunscreen use. And then I get a low D, D
Okay.
vitamin reading, and I'm like, I can't win. So,
It's kind of a
and
catch-22 there, right?
I know. And so, there's also a lot of stuff coming out right now about how sunscreen is full of chemicals and really bad for you as well. So I
Yeah.
have
I mean, I believe it. You know, the last few years, I've got like the Greek skin, the olive skin. So I still burn, but it takes a little bit more, I think. But even so, like last few years, I'm just like, I'm not going to wear sunscreen. I'm just going to only spend like an hour and a half or 2 hours in the sun and then just get out.
hmm
I feel like that's my gut feeling tells me that's better for me than slathering and all these,
Yeah.
names about that long, whatever the chemical is.
Yeah, what I do now for my races is I wear sun sleeves, which are just a very thin white fabric that I can pull up over my arms, because I feel it most if I get a lot of sun on my arms. It burns. It doesn't actually burn. I go red and then it's tan, but I feel the sun and it dehydrates me when I'm racing. So I don't have to wear sunscreen. It goes up over and I can dump water on it and it keeps me cool in it. means I
Now,
don't get burnt.
I imagine some of that, is that some of that maybe wind too? Kind of wind burn or
I
maybe
don't
not?
go fast enough for windburn.
We
Maybe
won't tell
like
anybody that.
maybe if it was like I did the Grand Fondo Hincapie this weekend, which is a big 80-mile ride up in Greenville Mountains. And when it's cold and it's wet and it's rainy, then that's windburn, but not out in the sun so
Ugh.
much.
So, for those of you who can't tell, Fiona's got a little bit of an accent. So
Mhm.
you're originally from Scotland,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
So with that, I don't think, do you have fair skin? I don't feel like you
Um,
do you?
no, I mean, it's all those, yeah, I'm not ginger, so I don't have that white skin. My brother and sister are even darker than me. They have much darker hair and darker eyes. So there's a little legend in Scotland and Ireland called the Dark Irish, where
Mm-hmm.
when the Spanish Armada lost to the English, a bunch of them went around to the backside of Ireland and landed there and stayed. And so there's this legend that there's this dark skin people that run through Irish ancestry, and my granddad's Irish. So take that for what you will. I'm not
Yeah,
your typical like redhead ginger
sure.
Scottish person.
Well, like my mom's side is Greek and my dad's side is the Irish. So they're all
Hmm.
like Irish and English, and so they've got the fair skin. And I'm like, oh, I'm glad I can actually go out in the sun.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, so they've dealt with a little bit of that, the redness and all that.
Hmm.
No, you look good. Skin looks good from what I can tell. So
Appreciate it. Yeah.
yeah,
I mean,
man,
the skin,
taking care of
skin,
yourself.
exactly. All that, healthy living, healthy eating is the side effects of it. Like I said, or weight loss. It's never been a goal of mine to lose weight. But also, I've mentioned to you before, Justin, I suffered from eczema from a very, very long time. From as a child, had no skin on the inside of my arms or the back of my knees, and had to go to bed with socks on my hands so I wouldn't scratch myself in my sleep. And
Mm,
the doctors back then, eczema is fairly common. I think it's common here too, but is very common in Britain. There seems to be a bigger support group there.
mm,
And they told me when I was little, they told my parents when I was little that I shouldn't drink milk. So I grew up not drinking glasses of milk like my brother and sister did. So going vegan, that was an easier thing for me. Was like I never was going to miss a glass of milk,
mm-hmm.
but I didn't drink glasses of milk. But I still had milk in my cereal, and I still ate yogurt and cheese. So like, you know, we did really well on the no dairy bit, obviously. But so going off dairy completely to go vegan actually got rid of my eczema. And I had childhood eczema, and I had eczema as an adult. I had it on the palms of my hands. I would get it on my face. And this is where, for me, I think Western medicine fails, because my whole life, the only prescription that Western doctors have given me is steroid cream. And even to this day, if I went to a Western doctor, they would just give me steroid cream. So
Yeah,
I tried a lot of alternatives, because steroid cream is not great for you. It thins your skin, and it's just not good. Is not always effective. It's treating the symptom rather than the cause. So the
mm-hmm.
first time I started experiencing other types of medicine was when I was living in Scotland for university. And I lived in an area with a lot of Chinese doctors, and they always advertised treatment for psoriasis and eczema. So I went to them, and that's a much more holistic whole body treatment. And so I got put on Chinese herbs, and that was the first time I had relief from it. And they asked me about what I was eating and my lifestyle, and they also do diagnosis via the tongue.
Mm.
And so that was really good. It never got rid of it, because my lifestyle still wasn't great. I mean, I was a heavy drinker and ate a lot of junk food and that sort of stuff. So it helped ease the symptoms, but my lifestyle was not helping in the best way. But
Yeah, it's crazy. So, do you still drink at all on occasion now, or
yeah, I
you do?
still drink. But I mean, in terms of like, I used to go out and party every weekend and be hungover all weekend. Now
Mm.
it's like my husband and I will have a bottle of wine between us for the whole weekend, right? So
Yeah,
it's a glass or two of wine on a Friday and Saturday night.
yeah. I've seen, my girlfriend Shannon. She's, basically recently figured out that the alcohol, and it's not like we partied all the time or anything, but we just really nailed it down that alcohol is such a huge trigger for a lot of her flares and everything. And the gluten, she's cut out gluten and dairy for a few years now, and
Hmm.
that's helped somewhat. Um, but then like you get in, we can go down this rabbit hole, but like the gluten and all that is, I don't think it's so much that it is wheat. I think it's the kind of wheat that we have now, and because of all the
100%.
pesticides and all this
Yeah.
other rabbit hole stuff. But
So I'm not gluten free. I don't have a gluten intolerance, but I do, after reading about, how much glyphosate is in our wheat and the theories that the glyphosate is what's causing gluten intolerance because it's breaking down your gut, and your gut is right next to your immune system. So if you have leaky gut, you're firing off your immune system, and your immune system is overactive and it doesn't have a disease to fight. It's going to fight you. So you have lupus, eczema, psoriasis, all Crohn's disease, all number of autoimmune diseases, right? So again, I'm not gluten intolerant, but I am, we eat a lot of pasta, but I buy pasta that is made in Italy from Italian wheat. I won't buy regular pasta just to be on the safe side. There's so little, it's impossible to prevent us from ingesting glyphosate. It's in our air, it's in our water. My neighbors spray
mm-hmm.
their lawn, it runs down the lawn to me, But for things like that, there's also a lot of glyphosate in oats. So I try and buy organic oats just to mitigate the risk, or, reduce the ingestion of it.
Sure, we're not getting out of this thing alive. That's one thing. So it's
Yeah.
all about managing it where you can.
Yeah.
And um, I've even read that, like, have you tried that Impossible Burger or the Impossible Meat at all?
Yeah, I have. I've had it at Burger King once
Oh yeah,
because they
okay.
have the Impossible Whopper now. So I've had
I,
that. I've had Beyond Burger more than the Impossible Burger.
I've tried the Beyond Meat. I
Hmm.
didn't think much of it, but I would rather just, if I'm going to be plant based, I would rather just have whole foods, just whole, and that even if I'm eating a lot of meat, I try to make all of my diet whole, just
Hmm.
as natural state as possible.
Yeah.
Um, but I've read, and I need to look more into this. I don't think this is gospel, but I've read that the Beyond Meat has a lot of glyphosate in it.
Yeah,
Which,
I haven't read that, but I can understand it. The first time I had a Beyond Burger was maybe a year ago, and it was because it was the only vegan option. And just like you, it was weird because I hadn't eaten meat in over a year, and so I don't crave meat. There's no craving there. So like I'm not like, oh god, I really miss a burger, give me something that tastes just like meat but isn't. So when they gave it to me, it kind of screwed my head. I was like, this tastes too much like meat to me. But it didn't give me that heavy meat feeling on my gut that I talked about earlier. And so the Beyond Burger, the Impossible Burger, is real, true vegan junk food, and that's how I see it. Like,
yeah.
I will eat it once in a while, but just like you don't need to be eating McDonald's multiple times a week, I don't need to be eating Beyond Burgers except for maybe like once or twice a year. And,
Yeah.
and
Just like,
unfortunately, it is showing up on menus as the only vegan option, and I think that shows a chef that doesn't understand vegans, because most vegans don't want to eat something that tastes like meat.
mm-hmm. Yeah, man. So you mentioned the eczema. That was that your main health issue that led you to veganism, or?
Yeah, I mean, I didn't expect the eczema to clear up, so it wasn't a primary driver. Um, in terms of I was happy that that happened. I'm still happy. I still look at my hands in amazement, and I mean, even to this day, my mom and dad ask me like, "How's your eczema?" Because it's just been a chronic problem my entire life.
Mm,
One thing I was excited about going plant-based after doing research about plant-based athletes was to have a faster recovery time and have less aches and pains. And that is certainly something I experience. A huge aspect of sports training is quality recovery time. So, you do a hard workout, you put the stress on your body, but it has to be able to recover before you go and do that again. That's the only way that you gain strength. And I certainly felt less aches and pains, able to go again with a shorter recovery time in between, less inflammation. And so that was another fantastic side effect that I felt personally.
awesome. I
Mm-hmm.
experienced that too. I've
Mm-hmm.
experienced it on both sides. I've wondered if I know you said you've cut out all processed foods.
Mm-hmm.
I assume that includes most sugar, most refined sugar.
I mean, I'm going to tell you right
Fiona.
now. Yeah, I know. I'm going to be honest with you. Like, all processed foods. There are cookies and chocolate and gummies in our house, and I do eat those. And, you know, it is what it is. I don't eat them all day. I usually have them at night after dinner.
But you're working out a ton anyway, though.
Yeah. And I think also it's bad to fall in the trap of like good and bad food. I think if you only ate carrots, that would be a bad food, right? A carrot on its own is not bad food.
Mm-hmm.
And if you only ate cookies, then yeah, that's not bad food. But everything in moderation, everything in balance, really get to understand what your body is craving, and then how you feel afterwards. I think a huge thing is, you know, like I said, with the red meat, my husband has a severe reaction to red meat. So he's never looking at a steak going, oh my God, that looks good, even though they have the steak on TV with the sizzle and you can remember those cues that used to make you salivate. But you
Mm-hmm.
just have to think about, I'm going to feel like utter shit after I eat that. And that's
Was it,
enough to not want to eat it,
was that
you
a
know?
pun?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. I didn't know
Yeah.
he was allergic to red meat. That's like, from what I've read, that's one of the rarest food allergies. Because in general, people like across the board are not allergic to meat. Now, shellfish is another story.
Yeah,
But
I mean,
I've heard that, yeah, like for some people, red meat can have a rare histamine reaction to it.
yeah, he didn't. I don't know if he had that. He's had histamine reactions to other stuff. He hasn't had his true histamine, but like I said, he gets like the meat sweats. You talk about the meat sweats. Maybe some people get it if they have a whole ton of meat. Well, he gets it
Yeah.
just quickly from red meat. And I know some other people who said the same thing. It's just, I think it's just hard on some people's digestive tracts.
Mm-hmm.
Like anything, like wheat is hard on some people's digestive tracts. So they're going to
Sure.
feel bloated and heavy and sweaty and whatever else comes along with it. Yeah, I mean, but there's that tick-borne disease as well that's becoming more prevalent, where if you get bitten with that, you actually overnight develop a red meat allergy. Have you heard of that one?
I have. I don't remember the name for it or anything, but
Yeah.
that's. I think that's sort of related to what I was mentioning.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, where yeah, if you get bit by this tick, or do they still think that Lyme is related to an actual tick bite, or has that kind of just been disproven?
I don't know about that.
Yeah.
I haven't looked up Lyme disease recently. I know it's misdiagnosed very often. So
Sure. Yeah, with Hashimoto's and all this thyroid and autoimmune, it's just there's a lot of labels out there that they're just blankets for we don't know what's going on here. Take
yeah.
steroids,
Mm-hmm.
which I think a lot of it can be traced back to diet, and that's what I think is so interesting. And exercise, obviously, too,
Mm-hmm.
'cause it gets everything moving, gets your body working better. That's why I think it's why a big reason why I started this platform is I want everybody learning from each other and talking to each other because I've tried both. I say this ad nauseum here, but like I've tried the vegan, I've tried carnivore.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, for me, one way works better than the other, but it's not going to work for everybody. And there's definitely a lot to be said for, you know, our gut microbiomes and our DNA and our genetics and all that. We've just got to find what works for you. So
Mm-hmm.
anybody who is interested in a plant-based diet, you've got any questions for Fiona, definitely reach out.
Yeah.
Because she's going to be one of the best resources. She's training like a mad person, right?
Yeah.
Doing all these triathlons.
Yeah, for
Um,
sure.
so I think that's probably a good place where we can end it. But if you'd like, I'd like you to go ahead and give yourself a shameless plug on how we can reach you.
Yeah, you can find me on Facebook, Fiona Martin, or Fiona G Martin, on Instagram as try_Fiona. I do write a blog. It's mostly focused on my triathlon training and my race reports, but over this off season, I tend to do a little bit more recipes because I do get asked for that sort of stuff, like what are your favorite smoothies? And I have a blog about like my favorite ways to use oats. Like I could live off of oats. So you can find that at fionagmartin.com. And that's it for now,
Are
actually.
these steel cut oats?
They're old fashioned oats.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I don't use steel cut.
Oh man, I figured you like I thought that was an Irish thing, right? The
It
steel cut.
probably is, but yeah, no. Everything I do is right now. It's with old fashioned oats.
Good deal. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
All right. Well, thanks for having me. This is fun. I could talk forever about this sort of stuff. So
Well, we'll do another one day.
yeah.
All
Mhm.
right. Well, take care, Fiona. We'll talk to you later.
All right, thanks.
All right. Bye.
Bye.